Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in Internet Shitlords. And today, before I begin my video, I want to thank again everyone who has purchased Baptism of Fire. It is still in the top 5 of Drive-Thru RPG's bestsellers. It's already hit ELECTRUM bestseller in terms of total sales, and it is continuing to move fast. I am so pleased that so many of you have liked it. And I really appreciate all of you that have purchased it. If you, as you can see, I still don't have the books, because obviously if I did, I would have Baptism of Fire up there. Unfortunately, I do not. Here's Lion and Dragon, which is my other medieval authentic RPG rule set. And again, because some people have been asking over and over again about this, what I will say is that Baptism of Fire and Lion and Dragon have the same essential system. What Baptism of Fire has is some differences to a few things, including some of the character classes, to specifically fit the 11th century Poland setting. And Baptism of Fire has expanded content, but nothing that fundamentally changes the rules. Instead, it has more critical tables. It has a number of more tables in general. It's obviously got different equipment tables and things like that. The backgrounds are different. The names are different. There are differences in social classes. All kinds of stuff that specifically fits the Polish setting, but can also be used as Lion and Dragon 1.5, I guess you'd say. It is not a new edition. It's not a radically different edition, but it does have some changes. All right. And what I will say is, if you haven't bought Baptism of Fire yet, you might as well, right? Sorry, if you can afford it anyway, you might as well, because at this point we can see that nobody sincere has a wrong word to say about it. Everybody loves the book. There's been other books, Invisible College in particular, that had its printing had certain issues that caused people to complain about the printing quality. But we don't see any of that here. Most people even love the all the layout, all the art, everything about it. They love the size of it. They love the content. If you check out on Drive-Thru in the page, the reviews and the rating is very high. And I would add, if you've already bought the product on our Drive-Thru RPG, then I would ask you to please go back there now after you've had a chance to look at Baptism of Fire and give it a rating. Or even if you want to, write a review, right? But at least give it a rating. Giving it a rating takes 2 minutes of your time, but it improves the visibility of Baptism of Fire. So I really appreciate if you would be able to do that if you haven't already. And thank you to everybody who has. All right, so that's enough of the introduction. That's 3 minutes in. I know some people get annoyed by this stuff, but hey, it's most of my long-term subscribers are used to it. Today, though, I'm going to get back to talking about Wizards of the Coast and a couple of their latest examples of disingenuousness. Okay, and fundamentally, it's an issue with the truth that they have. and the first thing I'm going to talk about, it makes that so obvious, which has to do with, maybe if you watched Diversity and Dragons live stream a couple of days, or yesterday night. I've lost track of time with how much work I've been doing. You might be aware of this. So apparently, Wizkids, who has licensed D&D miniatures from Wizards of the Coast, has published a series that was, or printed or produced a series that is a number of iconic characters from D&D in the form of miniatures, Wizkids style miniatures. And okay, that's fine, except that the very last one in their series apparently is going to be the or is now, I guess, the iconic warrior. Let me see if I can show that there. Yeah, there we go. The iconic warrior from the cover of the D&D Red Box. One of the most famous D&D images of all time. Because the Red Box was the best-selling version of D&D of all time. Possibly now with the exception of 5th edition. We're not sure exactly where those numbers are, but it was the most successful, right? And that red box drawing is kind of an encapsulation of what D&D is. And so, of course, when Wizkids revealed it, they said that they are now telling the truth for the first time about this iconic character, because you only see the character from behind, right? And they decided that the mini is going to be of an extremely butch woman, not a man, right? So and then there have been articles that have come out saying, and in fact, Wizkids themselves have used that term, that the truth about this character is that it was a woman all along, you know. And, you know, this is obvious incitement. It's obviously meant to attack regular gamers and by trying to force a political agenda on something they love. There's no question about that. But the part that I think was missed in Double D's, which was he did an excellent commentary on it, but the part that was missed is that thing, the truth, right? That is the most offensive thing that they have done here. Because obviously nobody at WizKids understands what truth is. Because to them, or rather their definition of truth is different. Their definition is the definition that people like Michel Foucault and Derrida used of truth, which is to say there is no such thing as an objective truth. So truth is whatever you can create as your narrative if you have the strength to maintain it. One of the things that people don't get about postmodernism, it is relativist, right? It says that there's no such thing as real truth. Everything is just a political or ideological narrative that is imposed on others. Okay, and so the actual argument underlying everything that the postmodernists ever did is to say that whatever the reality is, it is something that has to be constructed. And the way to establish truth is not by being able to look at anything objective, because nothing to them is objective. Everything is just a product of a narrative. But rather, it is to be able to semantically conquer everybody else. So postmodernism is fundamentally a philosophy of horrific violence and repression, right? It doesn't even try to hide that. It says, well, you know, there's the establishment, you know, the 1960s Western establishment of liberal democracy is actually oppressing us with their truth. And so we have an equal claim to override them, and through whatever means, whether it is, they say it's fundamentally by semantic violence, which is to say by being able to impose your definitions on the other person, right? But there's no question that includes the spillover of literal violence. So there's no qualm about that. Because again, there's nothing. If there's no objective truth, there's no objective morality. So it's not bad to kill someone, according to the postmodernists, to murder maybe 1 million people, right? Maybe several millions. That's what Pol Pot did, right? To murder millions of people in order to impose the truth that you have decided is the truth. And when WizKids says that it is the truth that this miniature was always a strong, independent woman and wasn't actually just what it obviously is, which is Conan the Barbarian, right? Without the copyright part. It's obviously a man, right? Nobody ever suspected, and in some articles they've said stuff like, well, now we've resolved the question. No, there's never any question, right? Everybody who ever looked at that image who was not insane for the entirety of its existence has obviously seen that as a man. There was no question, right? But now that imposition of truth is what they're trying to accomplish, right? They want to make when they say this is the truth, what they mean is we will engage in violence against you, whether it's semantic violence or whether it's like cancel culture violence, or at some point, if they have enough power, literal violence, death camps, whatever, unless you obey our truth, because that is the only way it works. The postmodernists fundamentally believe that might makes right. And so they argue, which is, this is like the wimpy, the wimpy nerdy kid who is like, yeah, you could beat me up, but I'm smarter than you, right? That person, that is the revenge of that kind of person if they failed completely to mature, right? Is that their position is that through semantics, you're therefore able to more effectively generate power over another person than through brute physical force, which is only something a complete imbecile that has spent his entire life coddled in the most comfortable and privileged part of the most advanced civilization humanity ever knew would be capable of doing, right? So Wizkids has done this, and I'm bringing up Wizards primarily because Wizards has endorsed it, right? Because they have to have some kind of veto power over these miniatures. And they said, oh yeah, no, that's great, right? Like they're all on board because everybody involved in that level of the establishment now is on board. They have completely co-opted what was once the Western establishment. And so it now has to either be retaken or torn down to the very ground, because there's no way you can allow these people to continue being in charge of anything, right? Because they're monsters and they're also morons, right? And the moron part comes in with the fact that Larry Elmore is still very much alive. And he has immediately said, no, it was a man. It was always a man, right? And you wonder, well, this is stupid, right? Because Elmore's alive, but he's not a spring chicken. It's only a matter of time, like how many years has Elmore got left, right? We don't know, but it's not, it's not a lot, probably. I'm not trying to wish him ill. On the contrary, I hope he lives another 20 years, maybe. He's a wonderful, wonderful artist, one of the great artists of fantasy, right? But Wizkids could have just waited, right? Like any of these guys could have waited. But the thing is that I'm betting something that I think nobody realizes, right? This is why. Why would they do this? Why would they take an iconic character of an artist who is still alive and say, this is the truth about this character, without even consulting? Because Elmore apparently had no idea they were doing this. So they didn't even bother to tell him to get his permission or to check or to threaten to sue him if he said anything to the contrary or whatever, right? They just ignored it completely. But I don't think they did. I don't think they actually ignored Elmore. It's that there is now literally no one working for Wizkids and no one working for Wizards of the Coast that actually knew who that artist was. They have no idea who Larry Elmore is. They had no idea he's still alive, right? They don't know. They assumed, well, it's from 40 years ago, right? And most of these guys are in their 30s, therefore it didn't even exist back then. There was nothing back then, right? So it doesn't matter, right? Everybody from that time is dead now, right? That's how. I think that must have been their logic, right? They assumed it was just like in-house TSR art or something, and that the artist was just some dude that doesn't matter, right? Because they have lost everybody employed at it must mean this, right? It's the only theory that makes any sense, right? Because otherwise they would have at least been prepared to have a rebuttal to what Elmore said, right? If they knew he still existed, if they knew who he was, they would have done that. What this means is that there isn't a single employee left at WizKids or a single employee left at Wizards of the Coast who is enough of an actual gamer to know who Larry Elmore is. And that's shocking. All right, so that is the first bit of bad behavior from Wizards and Wizkids, of course, that we have seen in this month, I guess. I don't know. I don't think there was anyone previous to that, but I want to bring your attention to another one because I think this is also very interesting. So. It has been announced that the new edition of D&D, which is 1D&D, is going to be Creative Commons, and that they're going to put out a new version of the Creative Commons that will be reflective of the new rule set of the books that are coming out this year, in theory, right? We're still not totally sure. The first one was supposed to come out in May, but now it looks like it's not going to. You know, like, it is. I'm kind of wondering if we're not going to end up having the 50th anniversary books come out in like 2026 or not at all. You know, but I don't know. The projection is that I think it's September now. I don't remember what they've said, but somewhere around there, the first of the 3 books is going to come out. But what they've already said definitely is that the 3 books are not all going to be out in 2024. So the 50th anniversary books will not all be done. You're not going to have a 50th anniversary set in the 50th anniversary year. That's how incompetent these people are, right? And okay, so I mean, you might say, well, that's good news, right? It is. It's good that they're going to put it in the Creative Commons. You know, it shows that they've essentially surrendered completely from the Williams plan, which was a really stupid plan, of course. So that's good. It's not really great for them. I think that now they're acting on automatic. They're doing this probably as an attempt to like regain good faith. They also haven't done it yet, but I do kind of. I'm assuming that in this case they're telling the truth, that they're going to do this. It is going to end up being in the Creative Commons license. So that pretty much is the end of the whole idea of having like in-house control over one D&D. Instead, they're going to have a virtual tabletop now, but it's not going to be exclusive. That's going to severely limit its ability to capture the audience the way that the original plan wanted them to. But that's not really what I'm interested in about they did a kind of Q&A about this, right? And the interesting part is that they've been promising for some time now that they're going to release the earlier editions into the Creative Commons. You know, the TSR editions, basically. And now with this announcement, they have made it clear. They've said they are going to release the older editions, but not now. The first priority is to release the 1D&D SRD, and then after that, they'll get around to it at some point, right? And my bet is I'm not really sure they are going to get around to it. They don't. First of all, they don't care about those editions. Second, those editions are problematic, right? So any process of review, like they're going to run into people in their own house, and of course, some of the same people that despise the fact that Baptism of Fire is selling incredibly well. I don't know if you've seen. There have been 2 entire Reddit threads. About. Although I'm sure some of them have threats. There have been 2 entire Reddit threads about Baptism of Fire, where anybody who says anything nice about it gets brigaded with downvotes. This is the problem about Reddit. It's a mob rule, and the mob are basically all Stalinists. And then, you know, they've gone on there and said all kinds of slanders about me, and it's quite amusing. It's amusing because of how impotent these people are, right? You've got some dudes on N-World and on Reddit and I presume on RPGNet. I think they were giving Brett Bernstein a hard time, which is really funny because he's like, yeah, he was my publisher ages ago, right? Like he's not my publisher now, but I think that because they're so out of touch with the hobby and certainly with the OSR and apparently with me, that they just assumed, oh, it must be him or something, right? Like, because for whatever reason they decided to pick on him. You know, I guess Matt Scribe dodged a bullet there, but you know, and so did, for that matter, so did, what was it called? Well Averred, you know, who was also a post at Spectre Press. Yeah, anyway, the point is, they went after him as in, like, should he be boycotted for having published the pundit's works? And it's just stupid because the people who are there, and they never buy the works anyways, right? They never buy something from Presses Intermedia. These people, the only things they ever buy are virtue signaling books that are put out as Kickstarter projects, and they only buy those if it's because it's meant to, you know, like, I don't know, this is an Afrofuturist setting. If you buy it, then that means that you support Black Lives Matter, right? So they'll buy it to show that they've bought it, and they'll never use it for anything, right? It probably just sits somewhere forever because the game isn't playable anyways, because the whole point is just to get shill money grift money rather from virtue signaling leftists, right? None of whom play, right? So these people are completely powerless to stop me. And I realized that a long time ago. And for the most part, they're completely powerless to stop you too. Yes, you could get doxxed, right? You could get some people harassing your employer, right? So in some people's cases, you have certain problems, certain risks involved with standing up to these people. But for the most part, they can't do anything to you, right? Like they're just like it's much more important to make sure you abide by rules of places you want to be, right? So you know if you're on Meta, you know, Facebook or whatever, you know that you have to behave a certain way. But if you stay in the lines, they can't do anything to you there either, right? And of course on Twitter you can be a lot more free, or X. Thank you, Elon. But you know there are still some limits of what you can say or not. And if they're going to take you down, it's because it's something you say or how they interpret something you say, and of course the mods can be on their side. So you do have to be very thoughtful the more restricted the social media environment you're in. But essentially, you know what happens, especially let's say you're a YouTuber or something, you follow all the YouTube rules, right? You don't get into trouble in that respect. The worst thing that can happen to you is that they complain publicly about you, and that brings more attention to you, right? Every single time that I've started a new project, moved in a new step as the pundit, I've had these people attack me. And every single time the end result is I become more well-known, more famous, I make more money, I have more success. That's the formula, right? So anyways, the point is, though, regarding the SRD, that I have real doubts as to whether Wizards actually intends to ever put the older editions into the Creative Commons works. The good news is that for the most part, it's not necessary, right? This whole deal of having like licenses, and I know that some of my books are under, you know, the OGL license. I don't think any of them are under Creative Commons, but the whole idea of having to have licenses is actually a falsehood. There is no copyright on game rules. So if you're not copying intellectual property, if you don't have like a beholder in your game or something like that, there's no reason why you need to be under any kind of license. And you could say, oh, but they could sue you, and even if they lost, it would cost you. Yeah, they could in theory, but I mean, unless you're making a fortune, there isn't a very good chance they're going to sue you, right? Like the whole thing that actually blew up the OGL problem was when they suggested they were going to go after Critical Role or the other big Twitch and YouTubers for royalties. You know, they needed to do that. That was part of their plan, was to like, these guys are all making money off of D&D, but they. You know, but that should belong partly to us, so they should give us royalties, right? That was the logic behind it. And they ran up against these YouTube celebrities, and they lost. And they should have known they were going to lose. The YouTube celebrities, the D&D 5e influencers, were creatures of their own making. They were the monsters that they themselves created. Most of them have nothing to do with gaming or game design. They don't really know. I mean, some of them might have been regular role players at some point, right? But none of them are actually people that are qualified to talk about RPGs. And they're also not like famous actors or something. They're all like B-grade actors that Wizards itself pushed and promoted and made famous. And then they became more famous or more important when the influencers became more important to D&D 5e than the designers of D&D 5e. That's when you knew everything was screwed, right? Like it was messed up for the game, and it was messed up for Wizards of the Coast, but they didn't realize it, apparently. They thought they were still in control. You know, it's like one of those. I was just watching. Power of the Daleks? It's like the first story of the second Doctor, because nowadays all you can watch is old Doctor Who, not new Doctor Who, and it's got, you know, these humans that have rescued some Daleks, and they don't really understand what they are, but they're like, yeah, we can control them. We control their power access, you know. It's all right, you know. And then eventually, of course, the Daleks get out of control and murder them all, you know. And that's like, you know, that's what happened here, right? The monsters that you've revived or that you've brought into the colony are now going to beat you. But that was necessary. That was a necessary part of the plan, was to call them out on this and say, we're going to get royalties from you. And they all said, no, screw you. And then that was the end of it, right? So that was the moment, I think, basically, that the OGL war was over for Wizards, was that they couldn't fight. It was a two-front war. They couldn't fight against normal gamers who hate them already, and the influencers and all the influencers' fans who used to be total simps for Wizards of the Coast. But as soon as they went after, but it wasn't because they loved Wizards of the Coast, it was because they loved those YouTubers, or those Twitch stars. And that was it. So yeah, the problem is now that the same kind of idiots that have now become part of the D&D community, which it's not, but that's what they call themselves, are never going to be happy. Like, the Wizards knows that the second they make Creative Commons of first edition or something like that, you'll have people complaining that it's racist, sexist, homophobic, or whatever, right? That how can you put into the Creative Commons that female characters have a lower strength maximum than male characters, right? How can you put that table that suggests which races hate each other? Like, if you put that in there, they're going to complain. So Wizards is just going to keep kicking the ball forward indefinitely. The good news is it doesn't matter. You don't need any of that, right? Like, that you can make products without using any license at all, as long as you're not taking stuff that is specifically proprietary material. But rules are not proprietary material. You can't copyright rules. Okay, so anyways, that's what's currently going on with these idiots, and all of which is a really good reason to forget about Wizards of the Coast and Wizkids for that matter, and purchase a real RPG, Baptism of Fire, right? We don't see covers for D&D like that Elmore one anymore, but you guys have all seen the cover now of Baptism of Fire. I've shared it several times in the community section of YouTube. I've shared it on X. It's good. It's being shared all over X. It was leaked before the book came out, and it already caused a furor, right? You could go to the DTRPG page. Just look at the cover. Tell me what is closer to the spirit of D&D, and is it that, or is it whatever one D&D is going to be? We know what's actually closer, so you guys should check it out. Check out Baptism of Fire at DriveThru, and you can get it in several versions. You got the PDF, you've got the soft cover, hardcover, regular color, or premium color, and whatever you pick, you're not going to be disappointed. So I guess that's everything for today. Currently smoking. This is a Lorenzetti Half Volcano plus Argento Roots.